morning. My name is Dr. Claire Hamore. I get to be the intern minister at Namakwa Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm so glad each and every one of you are here together this morning. We have a number of very special musicians today. Today's going to be a really wonderful service. Michael Mandrell will be playing some original pieces, Ryan Marvel on the piano, and we have a special guest flutist, Dana Lightsey, will be playing also later today. Jeannie Miller has the new Safeway grocery cards and will distribute them after the service. This is Jeannie, if you don't know who she is, and she also has a handout that will explain exactly what to do with them. Dana will be teaching a Getting to Know You class after the service today, so you could grab a cup of coffee in the social hall and then meet in her office for that. Each week we remember we're a people who make promises and break them and then make new promises again. We're called not to be perfect, but to be faithful to each other. Join me as we speak our covenant together. It's in your order of service or up on the screens. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its call. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Today's service is an ode to our hands, and so there will be many opportunities for your hands to be blessed by you and by other people. And I invite you to begin that by sharing a hug, a handshake, a high five, some connection, some greeting with the people around you. I think the wrong one is in the order of service here. Oh, 188, good. Yeah. I was like, did I put the wrong one in the order of service? I did not. We're good to go. Our Time for All Ages this morning is a kid version of what this whole service is about. It's called Lubna and the Pebble. And here we see a child with big brown eyes holding a small pebble looking at us. Lubna's best friend was a pebble. It was shiny and smooth and gray. Lubna found it on the beach when they arrived in the night. Then she fell asleep in Daddy's salty arms. There she is, inside her dad's arms, falling asleep. And here we see pieces of fabric hung on strings all above them. When Lubna opened her eyes, it was morning. They'd landed in a world of tents. Lubna clutched Daddy's hand and gripped her pebble. Somehow she knew they'd keep her safe. You might be gripping your own pebble right now. In a big white tent, Lubna found a felt-tip pen. She drew a happy face on her Pebble. "Hello, Pebble," whispered Lubna, and Pebble smiled back. And there's the little gray Pebble smiling back at her. Lubna told Pebble about everything, about her brothers, about home, about the war. Pebble listened to her stories. Pebble always smiled when she felt scared. "I love you, Pebble," Lubna said with a sigh. And there we see a picture of everywhere Lubna has been before getting to the tent city. Then winter arrived. The winds began to blow, the tents began to flap. Daddy said, "Come close, I'll keep you warm." And there we see them together looking into the wind. But Lubna was worried. "What if Pebble gets cold?" "That must never happen," said Daddy. He went and found a shoebox and a tea towel. "Thank you," Lubna grinned. And she put Pebble to bed and kissed it goodnight. And there they are laying next to each other, falling asleep. Soon a little boy arrived. At first he had no words, just blanks and sneezes and stares. "This is my best friend Pebble," Lubna said. And little boy coughed and sneezed and smiled. "Hello, Pebble. My name's Amir." And there we see Amir reaching out to greet Pebble for the first time. Lubna and Amir became friends. They played hide and seek under the stars. But at bedtime, Lubna whispered to Pebble, "You're still my best friend." One day, Daddy was beaming. "We're leaving! We found a new home." Lubna felt happy, then sad, and Amir cried. And there's Amir standing next to Lubna and the Pebble. That night, Lubna couldn't sleep. She asked Pebble what to do. Pebble didn't answer. But by the morning, Lubna knew. Lubna gave Amir the shoebox with Pebble and the pen. "What do I do if Pebble misses you?" asked Amir. "Draw the smile back on," Lubna said. "And what do I do if I miss you?" "Tell Lubna all about it," Lubna said. Amir nodded and held the shoebox tight. And there he is holding the box with the tiny Pebble smiling. There we see Lubna on the top of a ship saying, "Goodbye, Pebble," Lubna whispered as she sails into the sunset. And here we see more big brown eyes looking at a beautiful smooth Pebble. "Hello, Pebble," Amir said. Thank you. I would invite us to make a little love tunnel, sending kiddos out to religious education. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Mary Oliver writes, "I don't want to live a small life. Open your eyes. Open your hands. I've just come from the berry fields, the sun kissing me with its golden mouth all the way. Open your hands. And the wind-winged clouds following along, thinking perhaps I might feed them. But no, I carry the heart shapes only to you. Look how many small but so sweet, and maybe the last gift I will bring to anyone in this world of hope and risk. So do look at me. Open your life. Open your hands." I'd like to invite us into a place of meditation. And in this place, I invite you to hold on to your stone that you were given on the way in this morning. I invite you to be comfortable in your seat, however that feels, to let your eyes be closed or look down if that feels right. And let's begin by taking 3 big breaths together. Take that first big breath in and let it go. And another big breath in it go. And one more big breath in, because it feels so good, breathing all the way down to your toes. Hold on to it and let it go. And here in this place where your body is still and your breath is calm and you are safe, I invite you to think of something that you're carrying around with you that you just don't need anymore. Maybe it's like Lubna's pebble that got you through a time, but now it's time to let it go. Maybe it's something in your body. Maybe it's something that happened a long time ago. But I invite you to think of just one moment that seems to be weighing on you today, and to put that weight into the stone in your hands. To ask that stone to help hold this burden with you. And I invite you to sit, to hold that stone in your hands, to release that moment, at least a little bit, on the wings of this beautiful music. I invite us to begin coming back to this space with a big breath in, letting it go, letting our eyes flutter open. This is the moment in our service each week where we hold space for the joys and the sorrows, the delights and the concerns of our community. If you have something to share, I'll bring the mic to you since this table is up here today, and I invite you to share with us, and we will respond to you by giving a heartbeat back, by letting the rhythm of our hearts sink and letting you know that in your joy or in your sorrow, you are not alone. I would love to begin by inviting anyone who's here for the first, second, third, or even fourth time that would like to say hello.
Hello, everybody. My name is Pat Kiofsky. This is my third time, I believe. I'm a longtime Unitarian from New England, from Massachusetts. And this little building reminds me so much of the tiny church that I attended in Harvard, Massachusetts. Thank you all for having this lovely space. And I really have enjoyed my visits here. And I'd like to tell you about my sadness this morning. I woke with a dream that I was in an area where the bombs were falling around me. And I just connected with what's going on in Ukraine. And it was so hard. It was like, what do I grab first? Well, do I take my car? Do I take my dog? And it's been lingering with me, how those folks are suffering in Ukraine. Thank you for listening, and think of them.
So for the big heart of this little church, and for your big heart holding empathy,
Hello, my name is Russ Hartenstein. I'm here with my mother, Sally Henry, for the second time in about 6-7 years. Last time I was here, we were nursing her back from a surgery. I'm really happy to be here. I've had a lot of time with my brother, who's also nearby, and his family. And yesterday, the day before, we got the real experience of skiing together in my first ever black diamond in Colorado. I'm alive. And I'm really, really blessed to be here and thankful very much.
So for the bravery of getting through black diamonds and for the joy of family.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Miller. I just wanted to let you know that Cheryl Grice is having shoulder surgery tomorrow, so hopefully you can all send her positive thoughts.
So for Cheryl's speedy recovery.
My name is Claire. This is my husband, Will. This is our second time here. We're really enjoying just the community, and our joy to share is we're expecting our first child in August.
So for the joy of new life and of new relationships.
Morning, my name is Donna, and the sentiment I'd like to share is both a joy and a sorrow that we all have experienced being in the right place at the right time or the wrong place in the wrong time. And you might have read that 2 bicyclists were killed in Fort Collins last week. They were members of the Fort Collins Newcomer Club, and a mutual friend of mine knew both of these guys, and one of them was supposed to hike that day in Rocky Mountain Park, and the hike was canceled because of the weather. So he decided to have a bike ride instead, and so lost his life really because of the weather, when you think about it. So we've all been there where we think, boy, I was lucky or unlucky, and my heart breaks for his widow.
So for our hearts breaking in unexpected loss.
My name is Sherry. Is it all right if I share, Janet? Okay, this pretty little lady back here that greets me every time I come here with a big hug shared with me that she's having surgery on Tuesday. And I know how precious she is to this congregation, so I would love for all of us to hold her up for a quick and well recovery. Janet.
So for Janet's speedy recovery.
Hi, I'm Robin. I've been here maybe about 4 times. And Like the bicyclist, I just wanted to say something about, we had a shooting in Colorado this week. It's become so common, we end up getting kind of normalized to all these things unless we take a moment and share our hearts. And one of my favorite teachers works 2 jobs to make a living, and he goes to both schools, and we're all affected by it. And part of the thing I want to leave with is what you guys help fill me with, is those friendly stories and the seeing each other and stepping out and knowing that whatever our beliefs are, this soul is bigger than this life. And that the widow in that case, has some solace, and that this child, a high schooler down at Denver East High School, recovers there in critical condition, and that all of us have some vision always and some feeling of what that connection is, whatever place we are in, whether it's grief or the other side of things, and the beauty and the beginnings.
So in remembering the horrors of the world, that we don't have to think alike to love alike.
Hi, I'm Janet, and I just want to share a great blessing with you guys. I'm sorry that all of you weren't there yesterday when our wonderful Janan Wright, our children's RE person, had a celebration for our children, of an appreciation for our children. And these children, I went, and I am so glad I did, but I'm so sorry that the rest of you didn't, because our kids are just a flipping amazing. It's not just that they're cute, and it's not just that they're, kind of smart and like that, but it gave me hope. If more children were like these, the world can still be saved. I mean, these kids are kids that are smart I've never seen before. They're little budding astronauts and sports stars and musicians, and just, Brian, they take your breath away. These kids, and by extension, these parents who are raising these kids are just superstars. I can't say enough about the kids in this congregation and their parents. If you ever get any chance to be around these kids, do it. Because as a general rule, I don't like kids that much. They're little energy vampires. They suck the energy out of me. But these kids just knock me over. So I'm not kidding. There you go.
So for the joy of raising children in beloved community.
Good morning. Joy and sorrow, they come in pairs. I was called to the mountains last weekend right after leaving here because I have a young friend that has been just dealing with depression that's just growing deeper and has kind of reached the brink of despair and has tried to take her life but was not successful. And so I spent many days with her, both in just being alongside her in her despair and also looking with her to places where she can find joy in her life. And today, this morning, before I came here, I went down to the river. Water to me is always a place to encounter my own grief and let it flow. And so I sat by the Big Thompson at the Oxbow Park, if you know where that is. And just as I kind of entered into my place of offering my grief, a kingfisher began to sing. And I've heard kingfishers call before, but I've never heard them sing. And I just sat in that moment, just sort of paralyzed at how, when I'm entering to this place of releasing my grief, that this bird should come along and sing its song of joy. And in that moment, what I heard was, grief never travels alone. And so I'm sitting with that and offering that into the space, as a lot of us have our own grief that we're carrying.
So for the deep knowing that grief never travels alone and that you are not alone.
Hi, my name is Donna. This is my husband, Jay. I just want to celebrate our 3rd anniversary coming up on Tuesday. We met and married in our 70s. So don't give up hope, anybody.
So for the joy of hope and the joy of love. Do we have any on Zoom? No one on Zoom. Yes.
I have to respond to Donna. My name is Donna, and my husband and I celebrate our 3rd anniversary on Tuesday also. And we met in our 60s.
So for the magic of synchronicity, and once more, for the joys and the sorrows that are maybe too deep in our hearts, too tender to share, for holding everyone in this community. Your hands have been a blessing on your hearts, on all of our hearts this morning. And another way that our hands are a blessing is the way that they are of service. And one way we are of service in this congregation is by giving back to local organizations through our shared plate. And so I invite you today to give generously as half of our plate supports Homeward Alliance. Handshakes have sparked connections throughout my life. Growing up, my grandfathers were proud to teach me how to give firm handshakes with good eye contact. Passing the peace in Catholic Church meant handshakes all around for family and friends and strangers alike. In the professional world, handshakes have been introductions and intersections all at once. Working in prison, handshakes are the only physical contact allowed between people on the outside and people who are incarcerated. Over the years, I've discovered the intensity of handshakes and found they are indicative of the person I receive them from. Too firm a grasp can feel like a whole lot of effort. Too loose can leave my palms feeling clammy. Handshakes that get it just right mark a real connection, an exchange, an awareness. In over a decade of working with people who are incarcerated, I haven't ever asked why any of them are in prison. I've never looked anyone up. It's one of the few rules I strictly enforce in my work. I don't ask or search because when they're ready, people tell me. They share the weight of their stories with me, and I haul that weight with me until I learn from it, and then I discover the gentlest way to set it down or share it with someone else. Because if I tossed it off, or if I just threw it away, I know that I'd harm more than myself in the process. Much like Lubna in today's story, the power and burden of her pebble is best shared in the gentlest of ways. It's as much a blessing to carry these stories as it is to ease them from my being. One of these stories comes from the first time I had a one-on-one conversation with a brilliant, warm, heartfelt man in prison. He came to me after class one evening in a maximum security prison in upstate New York. He came to offer me the opportunity to share his burden of repentance with the hope of a tiny bit of redemption. His story stretched deep into his childhood and spanned what felt like lifetimes of abuse and neglect and loneliness and harm. And it ended with him telling me what it feels like to take someone's life. Not just one person's, 3 people. Taken by hands that were sitting a few feet across from me. How could these hands, which were reaching out to me for compassion, be the very same ones that had caused immense, immeasurable pain? How had my hands created hurt? How had my hands created pain? I listened and felt so deeply that I realized in that moment I was alive in a way I'd never been before this conversation. I felt the weight of his words on my heart and deep in my belly. I'll never forget his open palms on his knees as he shared his journey with me. The poet Jane Hirschfeld writes, "A hand turned upward holds only a single transparent question. Unanswerable. Humming like bees, it rises, swarms, and departs." And after we stood up, after we spoke about life and death and healing, I looked at him and my black sweater and my slacks and him in his state-issued greens, men looking into each other's eyes, just like my grandfathers had taught me. And then we reached out to each other and our hands met, clasping each other in a bond that I've been carrying with me since, in exchange, in awareness, holding each other as we were being held. There's a line in the musical Matilda, based on the book by Roald Dahl, which I return to as often in my heart as I do that handshake. It's during a song that opens the second act. It's called "When I Grow Up." And in it, children on stage list all the things they want to be able to do one day when they grow up. And the line I love goes like this: "When I grow up, I'll be strong enough to carry all the heavy things you have to haul around with you when you're grown up." On that night, after class in prison, a part of me grew to be strong enough to carry the weight of that man's story. And while I felt his remorse in my heart, it was in connecting hands with him that a deeper part of myself gained a new understanding of harm and a new perspective of redemption. I gained a burden through our hands, and today I'm sharing it with you. Throughout our service this morning, woodblock prints by Japanese-Canadian artist Neko Matsubara have been on the screens. They all come from a series she calls "In Praise of Hands," which appears alongside poetry by Penny Boxall in a printed book. Abbazzo Gallery in Toronto had a showing of her prints in 2021 and wrote about her work, saying, Matsubara seeks to communicate that our hands are not special simply because of their various abilities, be it gently holding a loved one or gracefully manipulating a paintbrush, but because they're the links between the human mind and the physical world. Hands, they write, are the conduits of our ideas, aspirations, desires, and emotions, and the vehicles that allow for our interactions of the universe around us. They are links between the human mind and the physical world. While the actions of our hands, the physical impacts of the world, are visible and tangible, they are links directly back to our hearts and our minds. The gift of carrying a burden alongside someone comes from linking our hands and our hearts and moving forward. Withholding judgment allows us to hold hands. Hands and heads and hearts moving toward growth. In the book In Praise of Hands, alongside these beautiful woodcut prints, Boxall includes these lines of poetry. No matter which side of the divide you find yourself on, come closer. There is more of me in you than I thought, and I'll venture vice versa. In reflecting on the burden of that man's story and the power of our handshake, I cannot help but be sure that there is more of me in him than I thought, and I'll venture vice versa. Poet and philosopher John O'Donohue writes about blessings. He says, when a blessing is invoked, it changes the atmosphere. Some of the plenitude flows into our hearts from the invisible neighborhood of loving kindness. And the light and reverence of a blessing, a person or situation becomes illuminated in a completely new way. In a dead wall, a new window opens. In dense darkness, paths begin to glimmer, and into a broken heart, healing falls like the morning dew. It's ironic that we so often continue to live like paupers, though our inheritance of the Spirit is vast. The quiet eternal that dwells in our souls is silent and subtle. In the activity of blessing, it emerges to embrace and to nurture us. He says, let us begin to learn how to bless one another. Whenever you give a blessing returns to enfold you. In a moment, we're going to hear some beautiful music that holds us in our hand blessing. And when we do, I want to invite folks down the center aisle with your stone, arriving at the table with someone beside you. Whomever is there first will say to the next person the words that are printed right here. May you be strong enough to carry all the heavy things you have to haul around as we grow. And in an act of solidarity, in realizing there is more of them in you than you thought, I invite the person saying the words to grab the next person's hands, to take their stone from them, and to place it on the table. And then they can leave, and the person who just shared their stone will do the next thing for the person behind them. Today, as we offer a blessing for our hands, I invite you to hold each other as you are being held. I invite you to a connection, an exchange, and awareness through this ritual. I invite you to be brave enough to share your burden with someone else. And once you hold someone's weight, I invite you to put it down so gently. That act is a blessing for another, and a blessing returning to enfold you. May it be so. I'll take yours. May you be strong enough to carry all the heavy things you have to haul around. or the fat's yellow pillow, not tendons, star of the wrist bone, meander of veins. A hand is not the thick thatch of its lines with their infinite dramas, nor what it has written on the page. Not in the ecstatic body, nor is the hand its meadows of holding, of shaping, not sponge of rising yeast spread, not rotor's pin smoothness, not ink. The maple's green hands do not cup the proliferant rain. What empties itself falls into place that is open. A hand turned upwards holds only a single transparent question. Unanswerable, humming like bees, it rises, swarms, and departs. Let's take a big breath in and let it go.